Welcome to Spirit of Truth. This is my very first Mandela video, and this is a response to BlueBeard 2011, in response to a couple of things. One is he asked us to make our own videos, and I think a lot of us are going to either make videos or we're not going to make videos, and I don't think many people are going to make just one video and be done, so I think that's maybe why some of us hesitate. It's why I hesitated so long. But anyway, after, I don't remember if it was right before or right after that request, BlueBeard made a video that absolutely sent shockwaves through me, and I immediately picked up the phone and called my sister. There's a couple things that have been going on with us for all of our lives, and some things that have been going on just these last few years, and then some even more recent than that. But we've been talking about it for a couple of years. I think it's about 3 years ago that I started waking up with needle marks on me, and they're generally in the best place that, like, doctors draw blood on me, and it's always, you know, like the bend of my arm. And honestly, I don't know how long it had been going on, because I wouldn't have noticed it if I hadn't have gone to the doctor to get blood drawn, and I go and pull up my sleeve and there's a needle mark, and I was like, oh, whoa. And so it kind of tripped me out, and kind of, I don't know if it tripped the doctor out or not, or the nurse assistant, whatever. But it certainly tripped me out, and I called my sister after that and told her, and started watching it, and I started taking pictures of it. I was also waking up with bruises, and then I guess it was about maybe a year ago that I remembered some people coming and harassing me, let's just say. I wasn't fully under my own control, and these particular people I haven't spoken about yet, and nobody else has ever said anything about them. And I'm not sure when I'm going to talk about that particular part of it, but part of it I will talk about. And that is that these people came and they would make me let them in the house, and they had me extremely nervous. Like, I was pacing my dining room, just pacing with, you know, hands to forehead, just really anxious and nervous, just pacing with anxiety. And they were giving me warnings, and it was very upsetting for me to remember what parts of that I remembered. And I was talking to my sister about this as well, and the strange thing for me was that that's what I told her, and she called somebody in Florida who works with these kind of things sometimes, and I knew the woman and she knew the woman, and she called the woman and she told her that these people were coming and taking me, and so the woman called me very concerned, just like, what's going on? And I was like, what? Because a lot of strangeness happens in my life, and has for my whole life, which maybe I'll go into in later videos. But so a lot of it I just blow off because it's stuff that's always been happening to me, like the Mandela Effect. And so when she asked me about him. I was like, what do you mean what's happened? And she said, what's going on? Your sister told me you were being harassed and it was against your will. And I said, oh, yes, yeah, that's happening. And so I told her just what I told my sister, and she said, oh my, and they try to get you to do drugs. And my jaw just dropped, because another thing I had been telling my sister is that I had been waking up with like the taste of drugs in the back of my throat. And I've had a chronic health condition which bars me from doing any drugs. I'm also into natural health care and have been since I was 19, had an incredible career in it, and still do it to this day and make videos about health. And so there's just no way that I can or would do drugs. Even if I wanted to, my body wouldn't handle it. There's just absolutely no way. So it was quite disturbing for me to wake up a few times and taste drugs in my mouth. And me and my sister had discussed that. We had discussed like maybe going and getting a drug test. And then it seemed to only happen a few times and it kind of stopped. So I never did get a drug test. But I thought about just getting and having some here at the house, you know, in case, and I still may do that. But anyway, I continued to wake up with the needle marks, and so I continued to document them and talk to my sister about them and talk to her about the bruises and how I would feel beat up. And while all that was going on for about the last maybe year, because of that and because of some other physical illness, I was having an issue with my bed. It had broke and I had to fix it, but I kind of had to wait for my opportunities because of my illness at the time and because I was getting beat up all the time. And so I chose my moments, and in order to repair the bed, I had to completely tear it apart, which was a pretty big job. And it's not a cheap bed, it's a very nice bed, and it should not have any problems. So it was worrisome in the beginning that I would even have to do that, and bothersome. And so anyway, I fixed the bed, and then it was just a couple months later, I had another problem. And so I thought, it's because of the fix that I did was not sufficient, and so now I have to change and get rid of these. I had these boards underneath the bed. They were called bunkie boards. And I said, okay, those were just not sturdy enough. I don't know why. This bed frame is giving it a problem, but it's not working. So, okay. And so I went to 3/4 inch plywood. And each time I'm having to tear the bed down, it's a big deal. And it takes more than a day because of the kind of bed that it is and the way that it comes apart and everything that has to be done. It's really kind of a little bit of a big deal. Anyway, so it was a big production every time to do it. And at the same time, my sister was having problems with her bed. And one day I said to her, you know, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I think my bed is breaking because I'm getting thrown in my bed. Like I have these memories of being thrown in the bed. And, so my sister said, oh my, and I said, what? And she said, I can't tell you. And I said, what? And she said, I can't tell you. You're going to think I'm crazy. You're not going to believe me. And I said, of course I'll believe you. And she said, I feel like I've been thrown in my bed too. Well, I also knew that her bed had been breaking down at the same time as mine, and she was having to fix it, but I thought it was for the same reason, which it was. But initially I thought the same reason was that we didn't put it together properly in the first place, and then when we tried to make our fix, we didn't do it good enough, and so then we had to do it like completely right with 3/4 inch plywood under the bed. And so that's what I was thinking it was, when it wasn't at all, because my bed broke again, like right after the third time I repaired it. And so I had told my sister, I think we're being thrown in the bed. And she said, yeah, it's happening to me too. It had woken us up, I guess, a couple of times. And so I've been calling her. She'd been calling me. We'd been talking back and forth. We'd had this long ongoing thing with the needle marks and the people that come, and the beds being dropped in the beds and having to fix the beds and all of this kind of stuff going on. We'd both been going through that for, a few years now, like I said. And then I saw your video, BlueBeard, where you said about needle marks and being dropped in the bed, and I about fell over. I just had to call my sister immediately and say, it's not just us, and, this is happening, and we're right, and we're not the only ones. And so, so that's what prompted me to make this initial video. There's a lot more that has happened. Like I mentioned earlier, that a lot has happened to us our whole life, including the Mandela Effect. The first time I remember the Mandela Effect is that I'm aware of at this point was when I was 5 years old, and I went to school, and the location of the heart changed. I have a theory about some of the body changes and the heart changes and what that's about and where it's going. But basically what happened is I was taught up to the age of 5 that the heart was exactly in the center of the chest. And as a matter of fact, there was like a signal. Me and my mom would do a fist right in the middle of the chest. It's kind of like, I don't know, saying I love you. You have my heart. I have your heart. And it was a fist right in the middle of the chest, with the thumb pointing upward. And so when I went to school and they started teaching us the Pledge of Allegiance, because they do that here in the States, at least when I was in school, every morning we had to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And they had us put our hand over the left side of our chest, and I was inquiring about, why is that? And they were saying, because your heart. And I said, but you said that. That's why I had my hand here. And she said, no, your heart's over here. And I thought, what in the world? But, you're 5 years old. All you know is what you're told. So I thought, wow. And then I went home and I asked my mom about it. And I said, Mom, they told us to do the pledge like this. And she said, yeah, that's where your heart is. And I just thought, wow, what's going on here? And I said, no, Mom, the heart is here. And she said, no, honey, it's over here. She said, a lot of people think it's in the middle, but it's not. It's actually on the side to the left. And from that time on, I never heard that the heart was anywhere else other than in spiritual studies until the Mandela Effect. So for all my life, the heart was well on the left side. I've studied anatomy and physiology. I took anatomy and physiology. I also had a career in massage therapy, and they do make you study all of the systems of the body. And then I love to study on my own, so I studied anatomy and physiology on my own. And then my sister became a nurse, so we discussed it a lot. And then I also had my heart checked, just to make sure that it was good after being ill. When I wanted to be able to exercise, I just figured I'd get a little checkup. And so I went to a cardiologist and asked him to check me. And one of the things he did was a sonogram of the heart. And during the sonogram, the lady is working her way on top of and underneath and all around my left breast, looking under the left breast, which is where the heart was my whole life after the age of 5. Other than, like I said, in spiritual studies, because there's always a lot of talk of heart-centeredness, and that kind of ties into my theory about some of the body changes. But excuse me. Anyway, so then all of the sudden there's, talk on the internet of the heart moving, and it's probably started with BlueBeard. And so I called my sister before I told her anything about it, and I said, "Hey, where's the heart?" And she said, "It's under the left titty." And I said, "Yeah, fully, perfectly under the left titty, completely." And she said, "Yeah, completely on the left side of your chest." And I said, "Not anymore." And she was like, "What?" And so I said, "Yeah, Mandela Effect. The heart's now in the center of the chest." And she was like, "No way." She was like, "Look, I've done heart surgeries. I've been in heart surgeries as a nurse, watching, assisting in heart surgeries. And I can tell you the heart is on the left side of the chest underneath the titty, and always has been." And I said, "Yeah, I get what you're saying, but, Google it." And so, we were kind of tripping out, that the heart, now is mostly in the center, slightly to the left, but in a completely different location. And then it's interesting because a few weeks later I had another conversation with her about it, and I asked her where the heart was. That's sometimes one of the ways I tell where I'm at, is interviewing people and see who they are. What's their story today? And so I called her and I asked her where was the heart. And she told me it's in the center of the chest. And I said, really? And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Has it always been?" And she was like, "But yeah, what do you mean?" And she was a different sister, because she had her recollection of our earlier conversation. She was now saying I just got confused, that she was saying it was slightly to the left. And I said, "No, you told me this and this and this." Everything she told me in the current conversation, she had also told me in the previous conversation, because when I asked her about the location and she told me where, I was like, "Are you sure?" And she was like, "Yes, I'm a nurse. I've been in surgeries. I've watched surgeries. I've assisted in surgeries. And I can tell you it's in the center of the chest, slightly to the left." And when I reminded her of our earlier conversation, she said, "No, we had the conversation. You just misunderstood me. I was saying it is a little bit to the left, but it's more toward the center." And I said, "No, that's not the conversation you were having, though. The conversation you were having is that it's fully under the left breast." And we had a whole conversation about that, how it's nowhere near the center of the chest. So the heart thing is my first Mandela Effect, which, like I said, was at age 5 when I went to kindergarten. And my next one was just right after that, maybe around age 7 or 8. And it involved the spelling of the word business. And I had just passed a test on this word in school. I'd just done a spelling test. I was in elementary school. And it was one of those strange things that I always remembered, because I told you there's a lot of things that, besides the Mandela effect, that have happened, and those started way before age 5. So maybe I'll talk about those at some other time, but there were lots of weird things that happened. So the Mandela effect stuff was just, to me, more weird stuff that happens and that I can't really talk to anybody about, because everybody's under the amnesia. Everybody's under anesthetic, and they don't remember, and they're not going to know, and I'm going to be thought crazy. So I just didn't say anything about a lot of things for most of my life. And so anyway, I was in elementary school when my second Mandela effect happened, and that was the spelling of the word business. And like I said, I just passed my test on it the very day before, and I'm sitting down at the table and I'm writing something, and my mother looks over my shoulder and she says, "Honey, you misspelled the word business." And I said, "No, Mom, I just took my test yesterday. I passed. I know how to spell business." And I was spelling it buisness, like business. And that's how I remembered it. That was the phonetic I made with the sound business to remind me how to spell it, like business, buisness, business. So I had just passed my spelling test, and I spelled business like business, and of course I was right. And now my mom, the very next day, is telling me that it's spelled business, which is like busyness, which is cool. I can do a phonetic with that and learn it and remember it that way too, but y'all just make up your mind here, like, what's going on? And so when she told me how to spell it, I said, "No, Mom, look, I just passed my test yesterday." And I swear my mother's response to me was, "Honey, they changed how to spell it because it was too hard to spell. So they changed the way we spell it." And I thought that was the craziest thing I ever heard, but like I said, I would hear a lot of crazy stuff. So Mom says spell it like busyness. So, okay, we spell it like busyness now. Just like the heart moved, we say our pledge over here now. We touch our heart over here on the left now. Okay, now we change the way we spell business. No big deal. But a lot of things like that happened to me throughout my life, and I just never said anything about it, because who are you going to tell? Because this wasn't the beginning or the end of the strangeness for me. So, anyway, those were my first 2 Mandela effects at age 5 and around 7 or 8 in elementary school. And I'm 50 now, so that was quite a while ago. And there were other Mandela effects along the way. Some of the effects that people think are happening today, or they're acting like they're happening today and it's brand new, happened to me a long time ago. And I've also had time loops where I lived through a certain period of time, and then I wake up and I'm back, 3.5 weeks earlier, the very next day, to something happened. And then I've had it loop around again and wake up that next day again, like Groundhog Day. And I thought, oh, what is happening to me? I knew I wasn't losing my mind, but I didn't know what it was. I couldn't tell you what it was. But I knew what it wasn't. I knew I wasn't losing my mind. But of course, if you tell anyone this, it would certainly look like you were, or delusional, or something, which is why I'm still hesitant to talk about some of the other things. But I wanted to at least share that much. I will share more about the Mandela Effect and how much of other stuff I don't know. Well, I guess I could go ahead and talk about more about these needle marks and these people. I'm not going to say everything about who they are, but I will tell you who two factions of them are. I'll tell you about two factions. One is alien faction, and another is military faction, like my lab abductions. And so I do know why people are being thrown in their beds, and I do know why they've been getting needle marks, so I will tell you that. So the people that were being thrown in their beds and the people that are getting needle marks have been my lab abductees. They've been military abductions. And these my labs do oftentimes work in conjunction with other programs and other factions and other groups. So, so the particular ones that are throwing people in their beds and are shooting them up with needles, I don't know if all of them are, but I know the ones that deal with my sister and I are also in league with some alien factions who are allowed to do some testing on us. And so the aliens do testing on us, and I know why and what they're looking for. If I can remember after I get finished with this, if I can remember, I'll try to tell you that too. But so the aliens are allowed to do some testing on us, and then my labs, the military faction of the people that take us, and the reason we're getting the needle marks and being thrown in our beds and waking up with bruises is this. And I guess this is really the reason I ended up in the end deciding to make these videos, because this really needs to be known because it's working. What has been happening is these people have been being taken and they've been being made to work. We all have different jobs, and we are all being taken and forced to work, and up until recently it had always worked very well. And as whatever has been happening, this Mandela Effect, this rise in consciousness, all of these changes that have been going on, whatever that is that's been going on, since that's been happening, then what's been happening to the people that have been being taken is we've started to rebel. And at first, they were able to still get us to comply by using drugs. And that's what the needle marks were about. The needle marks were not testing. The needle marks were to give you substances that would make you comply again, because they used to have a control over us where it was very easy to make us comply, and then we started rebelling, and so then they started having to give us drugs and stuff to try to get us to rebel. And they also use anything else they think they can use to try to get you to comply or be distracted from what you're starting to wake up to and recognize and realize. So the second that you start to not comply, or you start to wake up and realize something, then they want to jump in there and do something to make you compliant again. So they used drugs on a lot of us, and probably some other substances, I don't know. But then even that started to not work so well. And so as they began to get more and more angry, then they started to be more and more rough with us. And when we still continue not to be compliant, then they start like beating us. And that's how we end up with the bruises. And then when we still don't comply and they're giving up on us for the night or whatever, they just throw you back in your bed because they're mad. It's just because they're pissed off and they're angry. And so they try everything to get you to comply. And I know lately I was getting beat up a lot. I had days where I just hobble around the house for like 3 days at a time, because I wake up in the morning and I go to lift up out of bed and, oh, my arm's killing me. And as soon as I feel it, I get a flash memory of a fight. And I have been I've been sick, real sick. And for some reason, when they take us, we're not sick anymore. And I mean, I go from, like very sick and in the bed to like Lara Croft. I'm, ninja jujitsu with this guy. I mean, seriously in shape. And, yeah. And so that was the first time I realized what had been going on, because at first when I went to sit up and I felt the pain in my arm and I had the memory of the fight, I thought, wow. And I went ahead and sat up, and as I turned my legs to stand up, and I put my legs down on the ground, my left leg kind of gave way and I felt the pain. And as soon as that happened, I got another flash memory. And the flash memory was a combat boot in my upper thigh. And they do that a lot. They'll pick a spot and they'll have favorite spots that they like to use. Either that person likes that maneuver, or they use certain maneuvers on certain people wherever you're weak or something. But this particular person that keeps engaging me has a fondness for my left upper thigh, and he gives me that military boot with his pants tucked in it. Gives me that military boot in the upper thigh, and it will knock that femur bone completely out. So then I have to adjust it and actually put the femur back in. It's pretty painful, especially when it keeps happening. And that's why they hit me there. That's why they do that. That's why they go for that spot, is because it is very painful and disabling, because you're like down until you pop it back in. And once they pop it out, it makes it easier to pop out next time, so they just keep hitting that spot. And so anyway, that's where I got the memories, is after having been beat up. I'd been being beat up and shot up for a long time, and I knew about these other guys visiting me, but they're not exactly the same faction as the guys with the military boots. So So yeah, that's what's happening. And the thing is that it is working. Like I said, they used to be able to just make us do what they wanted. And then we started rebelling. And then they started using drugs. And I guess we became a little more compliant for a little while, but even that's not working anymore. And so they started beating us up. And so me and my sister had started telling each other, just fight them, just remember to keep fighting because it's working. They're getting frustrated. They are so frustrated right now. That's why they're throwing us in our bed. It's just like total frustration. They just throw you in your bed out of like it's like throwing us in the garbage or something. It's just like tossing us out. Because they're so angry and fed up, but it's working. I mean, I remember in my case, part of my job for them was, well, most of my job for them was, problem solving. And so they would come to me with these things and make me figure out how to fix it. And, as I began to become less compliant, I just became more rebellious to them. And as a matter of fact, the first time that they like really beat me up that I remember, I had just flat told them I was sitting across the table and they were questioning me and I was frustrated and I just wasn't going to do it anymore. I just wasn't going to work for these guys anymore. And I had already figured out that I could exert my power. That's the thing. Most of us think we can't. And most of us haven't been able to up to this point. And I think the more that we remember and the more that we remember collectively and the more that we focus collectively, the stronger we get. And so that's why I want people to know this because it's working. And as we tell them no, they're getting more and more frustrated, and each tactic is not working. And me and my sister have been talking some time about, well, I'd have thought they would have gave up by now, you know. I mean, one or the other, or both of us will be, you know, wake up all beat up and bruised up, and we'll be hobbling around the house, and we'll call each other, and yeah, I'd have thought they would have gave up by now, but that's okay, you know, they can do it all they want, because it's just not working, and we know, as long as they're beating us up and throwing us in our beds, we know we're not complying. And we're having more and more and more memories. Those flashes are getting longer and longer and longer. Like me remembering sitting across the table from them and them questioning me. And I finally told them, you fucking figure it out. And they were not real happy about that. Because it was kind of on like Donkey Kong after that. The fight was definitely on with those words. And, but I stuck to them and I was just like, no, I'm not telling you. I'm not fixing your problems. I'm not doing it. You figure it out. You fucking figure it out. I'm not telling you. I don't care. Do what you want. And they just like beat you up. They may, you know, strap you in a chair, try to do you some drugs or something. But in the end, if you just keep resisting, there's nothing they can do. There was some kind of technology or technique that they had for making us either amnesiac or hypnotic state, or I don't know, maybe it's some kind of sodium pentothal. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know how they were doing it, but these are definitely military guys. These guys don't take you through walls and roofs. These guys have to come through doors. These guys are not aliens. These guys are in military boots. These guys are taking you to places and making you work. And I've even run into somebody here in town that I've seen on the ship where they make us work. on the place where they make us work. And I tried to wake her up over there, but she's like really entranced. Like her job is computer based, and so she's sitting at a terminal. I don't see her very often, but twice I was able to pass by her, somebody that I know here in town locally, and twice I was able to pass by her and try to kick her chair. And the second time I really kind of got caught and had to like really fake it like I had tripped. The first time they didn't notice so much. They didn't really know what had happened, but I had kicked her chair. And the second time I tried to like hit her chair in the upper part, and that's the time when they caught me and I kind of acted like I had tripped. So I was just trying to get her to wake up. And she doesn't remember all of that, and she doesn't know that she has even been there, but I think they're all starting to wake up. And the ones that are waking up the most are the ones who are resisting, and the ones who are resisting are the ones who are ending up with needle marks, bruises, and being thrown in their bed. And like I said, the thing to remember about that is that it's working, and their system is breaking down because they don't have us to do the work anymore. And I think there are thousands of us doing this right now, that we all kind of started rebelling at the same time, and they just kind of like can't handle it, and they're like, what's going on? Like nobody's complying anymore, and so they're scrambling, trying this or that to make us comply. And you know, the drugs didn't work, and now the beatings aren't working, and they're getting frustrated. And I don't know, I'll just say what me and my sister say to each other, which is we think it's they're just gonna run out of steam on that. They're just gonna run out of options. I mean, if they can't make us, how long can they mess with us if it's a complete waste of time every time? So that's kind of what we're thinking. But anyway, when BlueBeard made the video talking about people getting dropped in their beds and about needle marks, that's when I had to pick up the phone and call my sister and say, oh my God, BlueBeard just said this. And she was like, whoa, wow. And I said, see, we're not the only ones. We knew it. We're not the only ones, and we're not the only ones rebelling either. So other people are rebelling, and apparently it's working, and these guys are getting more desperate. So try to, try to just look and remember if you're getting taken. Just try to think about it and remember. And, look for things like bruises and needle marks, and if your bed keeps getting broken and things like that. And if that is happening to you, then don't be scared, because I'm going to tell you, it's been happening to you for a lot longer than you would imagine. And there's more we can talk about that later if people want to hear it, or maybe we'll do that. But anyway, it is working. The more we resist, the more they're running out of options, and they can't just keep doing this forever. So don't be afraid. Just try to remember what's going on, and try to remember that you can resist. You can resist, that it will work. Just do it. Just resist. And the people that are getting thrown in your beds and are getting bruises, just keep resisting, because they can't keep doing it forever when they're not getting anything from us. And I know they're not getting anything from us. I mean, I'm surprised they haven't stopped picking me and my sister up, because they don't get anything from us. I mean, it's the whole time, it's like, do this. No, fuck you, you do it. I ain't doing it no more. And then the fight, and then they throw us in our bed. And I'm like, well, they just can't do that forever. And so me and her both just kind of laugh at it at this point. Honestly, I hope nobody out there is traumatized by it, because I'm so used to this kind of stuff that I'm not traumatized by it because I know how long it's been going on. And for most of you, you're going to be shocked when you find out. It's been going on a lot longer than you thought. I told you, my first Mandela Effect was 45 years ago, and I haven't heard anybody mention anything any earlier. And perhaps at another time in another video, I'll tell you what happened before age 4. That I have always had memories of my whole entire life, and how that may tie into some of this stuff and who I am and who you are and who we all are, and nobody's more special than anybody. There's no higher beings. There's older beings. That's it, just older. There's nobody higher or better. Even if they come from someplace else, it's, you know, it's like, are the parents more special than a child? No, they're just older. So they may know a little more, they have more experience, they have more education, you know, so they may be a good guide for the child, but it doesn't mean they're any more special or better or anything. It just means they're older. So, you know, even the ones that, you know, have memories of well before all of this stuff, doesn't mean they're special, or anything like that. It's just like they're older, and so they know some more stuff. That's it. Okay, so this is my first video on a subject like this, and it's, you know, kind of a little bit difficult. Like I said, first, my medicine was making my throat a little bit rough, but also, you know, this subject's a little bit rough when you haven't come out with this stuff before, because I do have a lot more to tell, and I'm not sure how much of it I want to tell now or if ever. So, BlueBeard, I definitely understand a whole lot of stuff that you've been talking about. I know you don't remember me because you're not the same BlueBeard, but I've talked to a couple of them, like on the phone. And, yeah, it's interesting because it's always a new one. And he's like, what? What? Who are you? What? So I quit doing that because it's always a new beard. But anyway, you did encourage me to go ahead and make this video because now it's confirmed that it's not just me and her that this is happening to, and I do believe that it has to stop soon if everybody just will continue to resist and try to resist harder, and just tell them, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. And as people begin to focus on it and think about it, they'll be able to resist more and better. And so it'll be interesting to hear if any of you out there have the memories or do know what I'm talking about or can relate. It'll be interesting to hear from you because you know, a lot of stuff I've been on my own my whole life and haven't ever discussed with anyone. And then, you know, I got to finally, in the last few years, discuss stuff with my sister. And this is my first time to publicly come out in such a broad forum and talk about something like this. So, so if my video seems a little scattered, yeah, it's because I am, because this is a little bit brain scattering for me to know what to say and what not to say and what we'll hold for later, and to still get the main points across. And so I hope I did that. So anyway, BlueBeard, this one's for you, buddy. Thank you so much for all of your videos and all of your contribution. Lots of us really do appreciate it. And so I also appreciate your encouragement, because you're encouraging people to do their own videos and tell their own stories. And, you know, that combined with figuring out why these guys were doing this, what was happening with the bed and the drugs and the needles and all of that kind of stuff. I just wanted to share that so that maybe more people will rebel. Just know, if you have needle marks or bruises, you've already started, so just continue it and be more aggressive in it. And eventually they'll stop with the needle marks, and they will stop with the beatings, and we will win. So I hope people will like, subscribe, share, please comment. Don't leave me hanging out here by myself. Okay, I appreciate it, guys. I hope this helps someone, and I hope to hear from you guys. Thanks.